Well, guys, it's official. Not only is The Last of Us Season 1, at least, the greatest video game adaptation project to ever be released, but I can also finally forgive Naughty Dog and Sony for whatever the hell this was they gave us back in 2022. So to Sony and Naughty Dog, you both have been redeemed. Okay, I might have been a little harsh with that Uncharted joke, but guys, I just don't think it's that good of a movie. But we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about The Last of Us. So The Last of Us is a brand new television series produced by HBO, which is based off of the 2013 highly acclaimed and praised video game, The Last of Us. I am pretty sure those of you that have played the game are very familiar with the story of The Last of Us. So I'm going to break it down for those who may not be familiar. So The Last of Us takes place 20 years into a post-apocalyptic zombie universe. Here we have our main protagonist, Joel Miller, who is played by Pedro Pascal, who has been given a mission to deliver a little girl by the name of Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, to a base of operations ran by a militia group known as the Fireflies. But throughout this journey, they encounter dangerous and deadly obstacles as they make their way throughout the country. And with every threat emerging in every corner, Joel and Ellie will either have to die by their morals or do whatever it takes to survive. And that's pretty much my elementary description of what The Last of Us is without spoiling anything. Now look, I have to get this out the way. Whether you thought the show was great, whether you thought the show was bad, whether you thought the casting was on point, or whether you thought the casting was just terrible, you cannot deny the production in this show is incredible. It is just absolutely astonishing and breathtaking. Throughout every scene, there is so much love, care, effort, and detail added to it. It's like they literally took the worlds, like they took the actual world of The Last of Us and just brought it to life in the most breathtaking and astonishing way possible. And I have to give props to the production team on that because my God, it is amazing. Sure, there may be a couple of times where they're standing in front of a green screen, and that's fine, but if you take those two scenes where they're in front of the green screen and compare it to the rest of the season, the pros significantly outweigh the cons. Yeah, the cons. And I have to give props to them for filming at on-site locations because it just makes the entire Last of Us immersive experience more thrilling, and it really takes me back to when I first played the game back in 2013. Well, actually, no. Technically, I played in 2014. I didn't have a PS3, but I did get a PS4 in 2014. So, hence why I played The Last of Us in 2014. But, regardless, still a phenomenal game, phenomenal experience. And I think they did an absolute phenomenal job with bringing that same experience from the game here into the show. I also want to give love to the team for making the infected practical. The clickers were practical. The runners and the lurkers were practical. Even the bloater was practical, which I was shocked. I thought they were going to just CGI the hell out of that, but no, that was all practical. Sure, they may have CGI'd the movements, but as far as like the embodiment of the character, that looked amazing. I was like, wow. Again, the amount of love, time, effort, care, and detail put into the production is just top notch. And I don't think that should be overlooked. Okay, the performances. Every single actor and actress just absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark with their portrayal of the characters from the game. But the first person I really want to talk about, Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller. This guy, Pedro Pascal, can do no wrong. It is so amazing how deeply he captured the character of Joel. Joel is this broken man with hate in his heart. And when you look at Pedro's portrayal of the character, he really immerses himself into the shoes of Joel Miller. And in my opinion, he truly brings the character to life. Like if I ever saw Pedro Pascal in the street, I would be like, oh, it's Joel. We might run. Now in the show, there is a moment where Joel shows a moment of fragility that we really don't see in the game, especially after when he meets Ellie, right? But I think what is absolutely beautiful about it is because not only do we really get to see that moment of vulnerability of Joel, but Pedro's performance, like he absolutely just hits the nail on it. He hits it home for me. Like when he is just crying or just fueled with rage, you fear him, you feel for him, and you understand the choices that he makes, even if you don't fully agree with them. And I think Pedro just absolutely did the character justice. Speaking of justice, Bella Ramsey as Ellie, like, wow. Wow. I'll be honest, I didn't even know who Bella Ramsey was until she was first announced as Ellie in The Last of Us show. Then I did a little research and I said, oh, she's in Game of Thrones. I never finished Game of Thrones.
You what?
But throughout the course of this season, Bella's consistency with Ellie should not go unnoticed. Her mannerism was similar to Ellie. Her charisma was similar to Ellie. Her sense of humor was similar to Ellie. Even her voice was very similar to Ellie from the game. That amount of effort and dedication should not go unnoticed. So props to Bella for doing the character of Ellie justice. But regardless, I love the Pedro Pascal as Joel, and I love the Bella Ramsey as Ellie. I also want to give Neil Druckmann some credit for bringing the OG actors from the game and have them present here in the show. And it's not like he has them playing like a clicker or unnamed soldier number 6. No, the OG actors are playing actual characters with a name, with actual dialogue. And I appreciate that a whole lot. But the reason why I believe The Last of Us is considered to be the best video game adaptation out there is because this show does something that a lot of video game adaptations fail to do. And that is staying true to the original source material. This show is beat for beat from what happens in the game. Sure, they change a few things around. And funny enough, with the few things that they change, it didn't impact the overall narrative. Like, the story actually worked. There were new concepts and new elements that were added in this show that actually made the show flourish even more. And the amount of Easter eggs and callbacks there was in this show from The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, it put a big smile on my face. Like, every time the characters do something even remotely subtle to the game, it just made me happy. Like, for example, anytime the characters were to give each other a boost up a ledge, or if they were to search for supplies, I would just be like, ooh, that's the scene from that scene. You know what I mean? But it was just really amazing to see. It was just a really cool Easter egg for all gamers, especially those that have played the game. I only have a few minor problems with the show because the pros significantly outweigh the cons. And with these problems here, I can kind of look past it. But at the same time, I'm gonna call it out. For starters, the infected. There should have been way more infected in this season. For a show that takes place 20 years into this post-apocalyptic zombie-infected world, why were there not more infected? I mean, sure, we see infected within the first few episodes, but after like that 5th episode, we see 1 to none. And it's kind of like, what happened? Where did they go? You know, it was really concerning in a way. I don't know the reason as to why they were a little infected, but come season 2, we need more infected. Another thing that I didn't like, and I actually had a really good conversation about this with a close friend of mine, it was the cutting of time. There were scenes throughout this entire season that should have been fleshed out way longer. Now listen, I get it that HBO wanted to like cut the excessive time just to keep the pacing going for the show, and I can respect that. However, I just think that if we had spent more time with these characters a little bit longer, or at least take the excessive amount of time that we could have spent to really flourish and expand on their relationships and dynamics, I think it would have made the show work a little bit better. But the conversation that I had with a friend of mine was that he was saying is that HBO really rolled the dice with this show. Because this show could have went one of two ways. This show could have been a crowd pleaser that was exceptional to fans of the game and non-fans of the game. Or this show could have turned into a complete and utter disaster. So maybe HBO didn't want to risk too much putting into this show, which I can kind of see, but at the same time, I still wish we had more time to build out character dynamics in their relationships, but that's just me. And lastly, Kathleen, I didn't like her. And listen, this is no disrespect to the actress. My biggest problem with Kathleen is that I feel that they miscasted her. Now, Kathleen could have worked if they had just done better casting. You have this antagonist who is supposed to be menacing and threatening, but she has the voice of a My Little Pony, and it just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. Again, no disrespect to the actress, but I think the casting talent should have did a better job at casting the role of Kathleen. That's just me personally. So plugging this bad boy into the rank system, I am placing The Last of Us Season 1 without a doubt, into the pinnacle zone. This is an absolutely phenomenal show. I loved every single episode. I loved all the Easter eggs and the callbacks to part 1 and also part 2 of The Last of Us. But yeah, guys, that'll pretty much do my review for The Last of Us Season 1. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of The Last of Us Season 1. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you wish there were more episodes? Do you wish that Uncharted movie never happened? Let me know down in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next one.
After working up the nerve, almost equal in size, I walked around with the iron for any wrinkle in time. I paid a piece of my mind for every nickel and dime, but never less than a 5 and never slept on a job. A killer crept on your squad, yet never left the garage. When your guide was close enough to see the flesh of his eyes. Get to the button and press, it's what the message advised. What's the threat behind the vest is where the testament lies.